Here's a creepy little tale about a truck driver. The highway stretched endlessly before Roy, a grizzled trucker with 20 years behind the wheel. It was well past midnight, and the only sounds were the hum of his rig's engine and the occasional crackle of his CB radio, which had been silent for hours. He was hauling a load of frozen goods across the lonely plains of Nebraska, the kind of route where you could drive for miles without seeing another soul. The dashboard clock read 2:47 a.m. when he first noticed the headlights in his rearview mirror. They were faint at first, just pinpricks of light in the distance, but they grew steadily closer. Roy figured it was another trucker, maybe a car, but something about the way the lights flickered felt off. He squinted into the mirror, trying to make out the shape of the vehicle, but the darkness swallowed it whole. The lights just kept coming, unwavering, like they were locked onto him. He flipped on the CB and thumbed the mic. "Breaker, breaker, this is Big Roy on I-80 westbound. Anyone out there tailing me tonight?" Static hissed back at him. He tried again, but the radio stayed dead. Shrugging it off as fatigue, he turned up the heat and focused on the road. That's when the headlights vanished. Roy blinked, craning his neck to check the mirrors. Nothing. No lights, no vehicle, just the empty highway stretching into the void. He chuckled nervously to himself. Maybe he'd imagined it. Too many late nights, too much coffee. But then he heard it, a low, guttural rumble, like an engine idling just out of sight. It wasn't coming from his truck. He glanced out the driver's side window, and his blood turned to ice. There, pacing alongside him, was a rig. An old semi, rusted and battered, its trailer swaying like it was barely holding together. The cab was dark, no driver visible through the grimy windshield. It matched his speed perfectly, hovering just off his left flank, close enough that he could see the dents in its fender, the peeling paint spelling out a faded name. Eleanor's Rest. Roy slammed his foot on the gas, pushing his truck to 70, then 80. The old rig kept pace effortlessly, its engine growling louder, a deep, throaty roar that vibrated through his bones. He swerved into the right lane, hoping to shake it, but it mirrored him, sliding over with a screech of metal on asphalt. Panic clawed at his chest. He grabbed the CB again. "Mayday! Mayday! This is Big Roy. Mile marker 312. I've got a ghost rig on my tail. Someone! Anyone! Respond!" The static broke, and a voice crackled through, low and raspy, like it was dredged up from a grave. "Ain't no one comin', Roy. You're on my road now." The line went dead. He dropped the mic, hands trembling. The old truck was still there, its trailer swaying violently now, chains rattling against its sides. Then he saw it, a figure in the cab, just for a split second. A silhouette, hunched over the wheel, head tilted at an unnatural angle. The headlights flared back to life behind him, blinding in the mirror, and the horn blared. A long, mournful wail that shook his rig. Roy didn't stop to think. He floored it, pushing his truck past its limits, the engine screaming in protest. The ghost rig fell back, its lights dimming, its horn fading into the wind. By the time he hit the next truck stop, he was a sweating, shaking mess. He stumbled into the diner, spilling his story to a waitress who looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "Eleanor's Rest?" she said, her face paling. "That was a rig that went down in 78. Driver fell asleep, took out a family of 4. They say he's still out there, looking for someone to ride with him, forever." Roy never drove that stretch of Interstate 80 again. But sometimes, late at night, he swears he can still hear that horn, calling him back to the road.